The rain-slicked streets of Seattle gleamed under the streetlights as Jake's truck rumbled to a stop outside the old Victorian house pulsing with bass. I clutched the door handle, my heart slamming harder than the music spilling out. Because for the first time in 2 years of sharing that cramped apartment, my straight-as-an-arrow roommate had dragged me out of my shell with a grin that said, "Live a little, Alex." But as his warm hand clapped my shoulder, pulling me toward the chaos, I felt the familiar ache twist deeper. Loving him from the shadows was my secret prison. And tonight, it felt like the walls were cracking. We pushed through the door into a whirlwind of bodies and laughter, the air thick with the scent of cheap beer and cologne. Jake, ever the golden boy with his easy charm and broad shoulders honed from weekend hikes in the Cascades, dove right in, high-fiving old college buddies while I lingered by the wall, nursing a red Solo cup like it was my lifeline. At 25, I was the quiet one, the freelance graphic designer who spent days hunched over my laptop sketching logos for startups that never quite made it. My world a canvas of muted colors until Jake burst into it 2 years ago. He was a marketing whiz at a tech firm downtown, always in those crisp shirts that hugged his frame just right, talking big dreams over late-night pizza about climbing the corporate ladder. We clicked instantly as roommates, bonding over bad horror flicks and shared gripes about rent hikes. But for me, it was more. So much more. His laugh lit up my sketches. His casual touches lingered in my dreams. And here we were, at some coworker's blowout bash, because he'd insisted I needed to get out of my head. "Man, Alex, come on. Shots." Jake's voice cut through the din, his blue eyes sparkling as he waved me over to a cluster of guys in flannel and jeans. The kind of effortlessly cool Seattle-ites who made the city's grunge legacy feel alive. I forced a smile, weaving through the crowd, my slim build slipping past elbows and hips like I was used to being invisible. Truth was, I was accept to him. We'd met through a roommate ad on Craigslist. 2 strangers thrown together in a 1-bedroom walk-up near Capitol Hill. He with his protein shakes and gym playlists, me with my sketch pads and quiet crushes on baristas who never looked twice. But Jake, he saw me. Or at least, he thought he did. "You're too talented to hide away," he'd say, peering over my shoulder at my digital art, his breath warm on my neck. Those moments fueled me, even as they tore me apart. The night blurred into a haze of Jell-O shots and bad dancing. Jake was in his element, arm around a girl named Sarah from his office, her laughter bright as she twirled under the strobe lights strung across the sagging ceiling. I watched from the kitchen counter, pretending to scroll my phone, but my eyes kept drifting back to him, the way his shirt stretched across his back when he laughed, the effortless way he commanded the room. Envy gnawed at me, not for Sarah, but for the ease of it all. Straight life looked so simple from the sidelines. Me, I come out in college. A fumbling confession over dorm room beer that ended with awkward hugs and faded friendships. Now, at parties like this, I scanned for familiar signals, a lingering glance, a brush of fingers, but tonight, my radar was jammed by Jake's proximity. He kept circling back, refilling my cup, slinging an arm around me like I was his anchor. "You good, buddy?" he'd ask, his voice low and genuine. And I'd nod, swallowing the truth that burned. "No, I'm not good. I'm in love with you." Hours slipped by, the party thinning as couples paired off and stumbled into Ubers. I was buzzed enough to loosen up, Even joined a sloppy game of beer pong where Jake cheered louder for my lucky sinks than his own. His pride in me, it was a drug, better than the vodka burning my throat. But then, as the clock ticked past 2, something shifted. Sarah had peeled off with friends, leaving Jake flushed and animated, recounting a wild client story from work. We ended up on the back porch, the cool autumn air slapping sense into us, city lights twinkling below like distant promises. He leaned against the railing. Tie loose and wait. He hadn't worn a tie, but in my haze, it felt like he had, rubbing his neck with that boyish grin. Man, Alex, thanks for coming. I know parties aren't your scene, but you will making better. Reeler, my pulse thundered. The porch light cast shadows on his face, highlighting the stubble I'd itched to trace 100 times. Yeah, flattered, I muttered, leaning beside him, our shoulders brushing. It was innocent, right? Roommate stuff. But the air hummed, charged like the storm clouds rolling in over Puget Sound. He turned, eyes locking on mine, and for a split second, the world narrowed, just us, the rain starting to patter on the roof, and a question hanging unspoken. You ever feel like life's too short for what-ifs? His voice was rough, vulnerable in a way I'd never heard. Straight Jake, the guy who dated models and joked about settling down with a nice girl, cracking open just a sliver. I froze, words tangling in my throat. Say something safe. Change the subject. But the alcohol, the ache, the years of silent longing, they surged up, and before I could stop it, I whispered. All the time, our gazes held. Electric. And then, God help me, his hand lifted, thumb grazing my jaw like he'd done in a dream. Time splintered. His lips met mine, soft at first, tentative, tasting of whiskey and regret and something wilder. My world exploded in color, hands fisting his shirt as I kissed back, pouring every hidden heartbeat into it. Jake, my straight roommate, kissing me on a rain-kissed porch, the party forgotten behind us. When we broke apart, gasping, his eyes were wide, stormy. Alex. Shit. What? Panic flickered. But so did hunger, raw and real. He didn't pull away. Instead, he pressed his forehead to mine, breath ragged. I don't know what that was, but I don't regret it. The rain picked up, soaking us, but we stayed there, tangled in the impossible, as thunder rolled in the distance like the warning I'd ignored for too long. The drive home was a silent storm of its own. Jake gripped the wheel white-knuckled, wipers slashing at the downpour, while I stared out the window, heart a war drum. That kiss, it wasn't a fluke, not with the way his fingers had lingered on my neck, the soft groan he'd let slip. But reality loomed like the Space Needle's shadow. Jake was straight. Or so he'd always said. Dates with women a parade in our apartment, their perfumes haunting the couch cushions long after. Me, I'd buried my queerness deep, content with stolen glances and platonic movie nights, because losing him as a friend would have gutted me worse than unrequited love. Now, the dam had burst, and the flood was coming. We stumbled into the apartment dripping wet, the familiar creak of the door mocking the seismic shift. Our place was a cozy chaos, his hiking boots by the mat, my sketchbooks piled on the coffee table, posters of indie bands peeling at the edges. Jake flicked on the lamp, casting a golden glow that made his wet shirt cling transparently, outlining every ridge I'd fantasized about. He ran a hand through his sodden hair, avoiding my eyes. "Alex, about earlier." I cut in, voice steadier than I felt. I grabbed towels from the bathroom, tossing one his way, the domestic ritual a fragile shield. We were drunk. It happens. Lies. All of it. My lips still tingled, body humming with the ghost of his touch. He caught the towel, stepping closer. Close enough I could smell the rain on his skin. It wasn't just the booze. I've thought about it. You. Us. The words hung heavy, his blue eyes searching mine, vulnerable beneath the bravado. My breath hitched. "Jake, you're straight. You love women. Remember that time with Emily? You couldn't shut up about her smile. It was a low blow, dredging up his ex from last summer, the one who'd left lipstick stains on our mugs." He winced, but didn't back down. "Yeah, and it felt right on paper. But with you, it's different. Real. Like I've been chasing shadows my whole life." He reached out, fingers brushing mine, and electricity sparked again. I wanted to believe him, God, how I did, but fear clawed at me. What if this was curiosity, a phase? I'd seen friends burned by bi-curious experiments, left picking up emotional shrapnel. We dried off in silence, the hum of the fridge the only sound. Then, tentative, he pulled me into the living room. Our damp clothes discarded for sweats, his gray ones that always smelled like pine, mine threadbare from too many all-nighters. We sank onto the couch, knees touching, and talked. Really talked. About his conservative family back in Spokane, the pressure to be the all-American guy, the way he'd always dismissed those confusing college hookups as experimentation, about my own scars, the high school bullying that made me armor up, the parade of apps that left me hollow. "I see you. Alex," he said softly, hand covering mine. "The way you light up over a perfect font or a sunset sketch. You're everything." Tears pricked my eyes. The humanistic ache of it all, two souls fumbling toward light in a world that loved to dim it. That night, we didn't sleep. Curled together under the throw blanket, his head on my chest, we explored boundaries with whispers and touches, each one a revelation. His lips on my collarbone, tentative then fervent, my fingers tracing the tattoos hidden under his work shirts. Stories of rebellion inked in black. It was romantic, raw, kisses that tasted of rain and redemption. Bodies moving in sync like we'd rehearsed it in dreams. But dawn brought doubt, his phone buzzing with a work email, yanking us back to the straight-laced world. As he dressed for the office, crisp shirt buttoned over the marks I'd left, he paused. "This. Us. It's scary. But worth it," I nodded, throat tight, knowing the real test was just beginning. The next week was a tightrope walk. At home, we were fire, stolen kisses in the kitchen over coffee, his hands pinning me against the fridge with a hunger that left me breathless. Jake's confidence grew, his touches bolder, like he'd unlocked a door he'd long pretended was locked. "I want this," he'd murmur in the dark, our bodies entwined on my narrow bed, the city lights filtering through blinds like stars approving our secret. But outside, we were roommates again, high fives at the door, neutral texts about groceries. His job demanded the facade, team-building lunches with straight-laced colleagues, presentations where he's shown as the reliable guy. Mine, freelance and flexible. Let me hide in my studio. But guilt gnawed. Was I enough? Or was just the exception proving his rule? Tension simmered. One evening, he came home late, reeking of craft beer from an office happy hour. Sarah was there, he said, slumping beside me on the couch. My latest design mock-up forgotten on the laptop. Flirting, like always. Felt wrong. His eyes were shadowed, the weight of performance dragging him down. I pulled him close, kissing away the doubt. But inside, alarm bells rang. Straight Jake wasn't gone. He was wrestling, and I was the battlefield. What if I'm ruining you? I whispered later, as we lay spent, his heartbeat syncing with mine. He chuckled softly, fingers lacing through my hair. Nah, you're saving me. But the world conspired. A weekend trip to his family's cabin in the Olympics loomed, his mom's birthday, the whole clan expecting the prodigal son. Come with, he urged, eyes pleading. As my friend. It'll be fine, as we both knew. I imagined the stares, the probing questions. Who's this Alex? My stomach nodded. But love, fierce, foolish, push me yes. Driving up the winding highway, evergreens blurring past. His hand on my thigh felt like defiance. The cabin was rustic charm, stone fireplace. Lake views, the scent of pine and simmering chili. His parents greeted us warmly, Dad with a firm handshake, Mom with hugs and apple pie, but undercurrents swirled. His sister, Mia, eyed me curiously. Her or so. Jake finally found a buddy who sticks, laced with subtext. Nights were torture. We shared the loft bunk, bodies inches apart under scratchy quilts. His snores a cruel tease. One midnight, when the house slept, he slipped into my bed, lips crashing into mine with desperate need. Can't stop thinking, he breathed, hands roaming, our muffled gasps echoing the creak of floorboards. It was risky, romantic, love defying the floorboards of expectation. But morning brought reckoning. Over breakfast, Dad clapped Jake's back. Proud of you. Son, when you gonna bring home a girl to make this old man a grandpa? Jake's laugh was brittle. His glance my way a silent apology. I excused myself to the porch, rain misting the lake, fighting the urge to bolt. This was his world, not mine. Did I belong? Back in the city, cracks widened. Jake pulled away at a bar with friends, his arm around Sarah for show when eyes turned. I saw it, the flicker of shame, the straight mask slipping back on. It's just acting, he swore later, pinning me to the wall with kisses that begged forgiveness. But doubt festered. My own life intruded, a gallery show for my designs. The first real break, buzzing with queer artists who saw through my facade. Who's the guy? A friend asked, nodding at Jake across the room, where he'd shown up uninvited, beaming pride. The one, I said simply, and for a moment, it felt true. Then, the blow. A late-night call from Mia. He's freaking out. Alex thinks he's broken you both. Jake had confessed to her, halting words over wine. Tears she'd never seen. She begged me to fight, but when he stumbled home, eyes red, the dam broke. What are we doing? He choked, pacing our living room like a caged animal. I'm not. I can't be what you need. The labels. The looks, it's too much. Heart shattering. I grab his face, forcing his gaze. Screw labels. It's us. The laughs. The sketches you steal ideas from. The way you hum off key in the shower. That's what matters. He crumpled into me, sobs racking his frame. And we held on. The humanistic truth raw. Love wasn't straight lines. It was a messy bend toward each other. Weeks blurred into therapy sessions, his, mine, ours. Seattle's rainy veil hid our progress. But we rebuilt, brick by vulnerable brick. Jake quit the performative job, starting his own freelance gig in digital marketing, aligning with my world of creatives. Dates became real, hikes where he held my hand unashamed, coffee shops where we kissed goodbye. The party, that fateful night, became our origin story, whispered over wine with a grin. Never expected you, he'd say, pulling me close. But damn, I'm glad. One crisp fall evening, 2 years to the day, we stood on that same porch, rain pattering soft. No party, just us, him in a hoodie I designed, me sketching the skyline. Marry me, he asked, ring simple silver, eyes shining. Not for show, but for forever. Tears fell, mixing with rain, as I said yes. In a world quick to box us, we'd carved our own space, proof that love, unexpected and fierce, could rewrite the straightest lines.